This is 8 Minute Climate Fix, a podcast helping you understand the energy and climate challenge in just a few minutes. I'm your host, Paul Schuster. So today is the big day, the long-awaited and controversial SpaceX IPO. Musk has taken his space juggernaut public at a figure somewhere north of $1.7 trillion, a valuation that depends in part on the company's ability to build a space industry around data centers. That's right. Space-based GPUs harnessing never-ending solar power, cooled by the vacuum of space, unconstrained by the limitations of resources and permitting here on Earth. Buying into the hype yet? Look, there may be something to the idea of putting compute into space, but there are naturally a lot of challenges that need to be overcome as well. Let's look at the pros, the cons, and whether SpaceX has a viable business model here at all. 8 minutes. It's how long it takes the sun's race to hit Earth, or about how long it takes a SpaceX launch to emit 3,500 tons of carbon into the atmosphere. Let's not kid ourselves that this is a sustainability story. It's a lot more complicated than that. Let's get it on. Morningstar did a really comprehensive analysis of the SpaceX valuation and didn't get anywhere close to the $1.7 trillion that Musk is asking for. They valued the company closer to $750 million, based in large part off the value of the Starlink satellite system. The rest? That's pure speculation about new industries opening up and SpaceX being the one to create and standardize those industries. The biggest of those speculations, space-based data centers, which may sound crazy, but the market is obviously valuing this highly, to the tune of maybe $1 trillion. So let's unpack it. Why is orbital computing a thing in the first place? For one thing, the growth of digital infrastructure to support the AI boom has been extraordinary, and we're reaching natural physical limitations on how quickly we can build that infrastructure here on Earth. Put aside for the moment that the speed of data center build is outpacing the demand we're seeing from enterprise adoption of AI. The big AI companies all seem to believe that if they aren't out there building more and faster than their competitors, then they will be left behind. And frankly, there's a lot of capital that wants to play in this space. There's just fewer and more limited opportunities to do so on Earth. This is driven by energy availability, resource availability, such as water or land, permitting timelines, environmental pressures. Putting compute into space, theoretically, could solve a lot of that. For one thing, there is a lot of solar power up there. A satellite orbiting where it's always exposed to the sun, that's a near unlimited supply of solar power without the need for energy storage or thermal cycling. And if the power is coming from space, that means a lot of the regulatory, community, environmental, affordability, physical constraints here on Earth could be bypassed. And it's not like the technology is overly ridiculous either. Starlink already processes incredible amounts of data in their satellites. All that a space-based center would do is conduct the training or inference in orbit and send the data back down to Earth via the Starlink stream. It's actually kind of elegant. The problems, though, are real. For one thing, there's the cost of getting these satellites into orbit in the first place. Today, commercial launch costs average around $2,500 per kilogram. Google estimates that liftoff costs would have to drop to under $200 in order for the economics to make sense. That's a lot of heavy lifting for reusable vehicles and learning curves to do. I'm not a space scientist, but I'd love to see some analysis on whether that's even possible. And then there's the concern about space debris in orbit. We're already constantly adding more and more satellites up there, and adding a whole bunch more tied to AI needs is going to be problematic. The risk is that we have a malfunction on one satellite that causes it to spin out and crash into something else, which then cascades into additional collisions, something called a Kessler effect. That's unlikely in the near term, but more likely if space data centers actually become a thing. But perhaps most challenging is what to do about heat in space. See, here on Earth, we get rid of excess heat through convection, heating up air or water around a chip and then moving that heat somewhere else to cool off, most likely exhausting it through a building vent or something. In space, there's no air to remove that heat. Convection doesn't work, which means we have to rely entirely on radiative heat dispersal. And that's not nearly as effective. Terrestrial convection systems can shed tens of thousands of watts per square meter. A radiative cooling system on a satellite tops out at a few hundred watts per square meter. That has huge implications. For instance, an H100 system with just 8 GPUs would require over 16 square meters of radiative cooling, which is a lot bigger than your typical satellite already. Scale that up. A data center in space would require approximately 1,200 square meters of radiator surface, or roughly 4 tennis courts per 100 kilowatts. A gigawatt center, which SpaceX has publicly targeted, would require radiator arrays on the order of square kilometers. To tell you how absurd this math is, there are startups such as Lone Star Data Holdings that are looking at building lunar lava tubes on the moon as heat sinks. We're literally looking at building caves on the moon to solve this problem. This may be the biggest physical hurdle for a space-based AI economy to overcome, one that conveniently SpaceX glosses over in their briefs. There are some elements that make space-based compute attractive. The technology isn't super complicated. Run GPUs in orbit, take advantage of massive solar capacity, beam the data back down to Earth. The costs need to come down, but I'm actually a bit bullish on that. I mean, on the one hand, I do believe we'll see launch costs continue to drop. How far? I have no idea. But if we also believe that AI demand is going to eventually grow and outstrip existing terrestrial infrastructure, maybe Google's estimate on what makes space AI affordable creeps up from that $200 estimate to $300, $400, or $500 per kg. Can we get there? Maybe. What I don't see a near-term solution for is the cooling problem. A small 10 megawatt orbital data center would require hundreds of thousands of kilograms of radiators. I just don't know how that math works. So, SpaceX, $1.7 trillion valuation, a huge chunk of that based on orbital AI compute. I'm not an investor and I don't give financial advice, but it seems like there's a lot of things that need to go right in order for a space-based industry around AI to emerge and justify those numbers. I'm Paul Schuster, and this has been your 8 Minutes.